And it's tonight. It's the Carabao Cup. It's the second semi-final, first leg, and it's Tottenham against Liverpool, and it's live on talkSPORT. Danny Murphy alongside Simon and myself this lunchtime. Dan, how do you approach a two-legged semi-final? Do you go out to win the first leg, or do you go out not to lose it?
Well, I mean, it always depends on the opposition to a degree, whether you're home or away. Your mindset changes. Your instinct is always to try and win a game. But if you, for example, if we were at Liverpool and you were going, I don't know, away to Man United, you're going to be a bit more cautious because you want to stay in it. And if you go after them back in the day, they'd have hammered you. Whereas playing Palace, your ego would say, we'll roll over them. You know what I mean? As it happened, they beat us 2-1 in that first leg because we probably went in with that attitude. And then we spanked them at our place. But that was because we'd had
do you remember that?
I do, very well.
That's because we'd had a kick up the backside because we were a bit nonchalant when we went into that.
Right.
So it's a difficult one.
Yeah.
I think when you're talking about Tottenham and Liverpool, you're not going to see Tottenham play any. We know that now. Irrelevant of who's fit and who's not. I'd be gobsmacked to see a pragmatic Tottenham tonight. It's the way they should be, by the way. They should be pragmatic tonight against Liverpool and play on the counter, but they won't. They'll go like that. And Liverpool, depending on... Liverpool's team will dictate a little bit what they do. If he goes strong slot, you'll see Liverpool just go after them and try and get the game done.
We're going to hear from Ange in a second, Simon, but I'll throw it at you. And I said it going into the break. This season, in view of what he's been saying to us periodically, is it cup or bust for Postecoglou?
Well,
you mean any cup?
Well, he wins
any cup.
He's not going to win the Premier League, was he?
No. I win a trophy in my second season.
So it was always going to be cup or bust, wasn't it? On that logic, unless you consider participation medal or getting into the top four, which he doesn't. He doesn't consider that. He said last season that that's not his that's not his ceiling.
Right.
So he has an opportunity. I mean, if they're going to do this, win this cup, they're going to have deserved every last inch of it because they're going to have beaten City, United and Liverpool to get to a final.
Unbelievable.
So I think that would be an unbelievably big achievement for them. I think they're more likely to progress in the Europa League. I think if Liverpool are at it this evening, I think they'll deal with Spurs. I hope they don't. I'm hoping for a Spurs-Newcastle final because I think it's good for the cup, it's good for the sport and good for these clubs. Liverpool will go and win the Premier League and Liverpool have won things. Neither one of these clubs have won anything for a long period of time. Sure. So with that in mind, that's where my mindset is. But the answer to the question is, of course it is. He doesn't give him a pass for finishing 12th in the league, by the way. So if he does well and wins the League Cup or does well and wins the Europa League, I don't think it should condone Tottenham Hotspur finishing outside the top 10 because I don't think the incumbent ownership model will think that's a great return. They need European football. It's part of that now. Of course, if they win a cup, they'll get European football by default.
But are you telling me right now that, say Ange and Tottenham go on and win this thing, and they finish 9th or 10th in the Premier League, would Daniel say goodbye Ange?
No, I don't think so, because he'll have achieved what he needs to achieve, which is European competition the following season. So whilst he won't be enamoured with a side finishing 9th in the Premier League, I would imagine, without paraphrasing what he may or may not think, that the competition, the financing of that Tottenham Hotspur have got in place for the development of this new stadium is based upon certain criteria, and one of them is playing European football. So if you've got European football by one way or another, whilst you're not looking at an upward movement inside the league, you've got a trophy, so that's monkeys off your back. So they'll still find a way to tell people what Daniel Levy is and isn't. But on the other side of it, you then got the revenue streams for the following year. Now, ideally, it would be a Champions League spot. So that means that there will be a level of frustration and disappointment, but the Europa League brings a certain amount of revenue. Yeah.
Danny, interestingly, there was a bit of news on Tottenham yesterday, in particular regarding Son, and the fact that he's got a contract extension and keeps him at the club until 2026. Ange addressed that, and he also threw in the name Mo Salah.
I think it's been unbelievable how he's been able to maintain that level of consistent performance. I mean, I know everyone's kind of focusing on it now, but even last year, his season was incredible for us. Like I said, I think people just need to have a little bit of context that, again, Mo's a world-class player, but you put him in our team at the moment, I'm not sure he would have the same impact because of the situation we're in as a group. You know, as attacking player, what do you need? You need a team that's kind of in good form, creating opportunities, playing on the front foot, you know, having a really solid sort of foundation of a defence that, you know, is cohesive. Like, none of these things exist at the moment. So we're relying really on individual moments, you know, and like I said, that you can say the same thing about, you know, Dom and Kulusevski and Brennan, because they're the ones that are kind of playing all the time. They're doing the best they can.
I mean, he's saying there even Salah would struggle or not have the same impact that he's having in the Tottenham team if he was playing for them.
I think there's some truth in that. I think the best forwards score goals no matter what. He was probably asked the comparison, the Son Salah conversation was probably a question was put to him. I actually think the extension of them extending Son's contract by a year is probably a good thing. I think he's been poor at times this season. I've watched him live 3 times. I think he's lacking confidence, but physically he's fine. His fitness is really good. He's people say he's lost a yard. It doesn't look that way to me. I still think he's quick. I still think he's athletic. I just think his confidence is a bit low.
Yeah,
he's struggling a bit with the criticism he's had, which he's very rarely had in his Tottenham career. He's been tremendous for them. So I think it's right for them to extend the extra year. And I think he's still, for me, if you look at the Tottenham forward line, he's still in it.
But in order for, I mean, I take your point. I mean, I heard something the other day when I was at the game that there was an element of surgery that had gone into Son during the summer that he hasn't yet recovered from, which might explain some of the performances and the physicality of the argument. But he is not an ascending force. He's a declining force. He's not the same player as he was. So is he, in the same way that I find it really curious the signing of Timo Werner, because I think he's a speedboat without a brain. I look at it and think, how do you get this club where you want it to go if you sign these sort of players? And is Son, is he good for the dressing room? Is that part of the character that we're saying here? Because I think when you're looking at taking the step up to be able to be a very competitive force in the Premier League, I'm not sure that Son at 32 years of age is the answer. Maybe I'm wrong.
If you look, it's a fair point. If Son is happy, which he seems to be, he's not. Doesn't seem a bad influence anyway. He's a good leader, and people.
He looks marginalised. He doesn't look the same person. Last year he was billed and fulfilled it as being some sort of pseudo replacement for Harry Kane. And by the way, I don't know what Ange Postecoglou thinks he's doing sometimes in some of these press conferences. I think he talks too much. I really like him, but you don't have to take a bite at every. You don't have to answer every question. You don't have to give.
I think he's giving it context and nuance that you would do.
But he doesn't have to
because they're so depleted. He was without 9 first-team regulars recently.
There's no benefit. Listen,
you can't go to every press conference and not talk, can you?
No, I'm not suggesting you can, but you don't have to draw a parallel between how Mohamed Salah would do on your side by highlighting the fact that your side doesn't create the same opportunities that we know that your side doesn't create the same opportunities, because that's why Liverpool top the league and you ain't. And Liverpool have spent more money and have got more heritage and have got a better squad than you've got. So we know that Salah. So I don't understand why he needs to take a bite of these things, because on one hand he goes from being intemperate and intolerant and very fed up with journalistic questions to indulging them. So he's a real mixed bag. And
that's a good point.
And I like him.
That's a good point.
I do like him.
1 minute he's like, I'm not going there. The next minute he just throws himself into it.
The good thing about keeping Son is that even if you don't see him as the guy who's going to be the leader and the one who's the most gives you the biggest contribution in terms of goals and assists next season or moving forward, he's still great to have in terms of, because you need 5 or 6. You need 5. And Tottenham are struggling with strength and depth in that respect. So if you've got the chance to what's the word? Or you extend his 1 year and the 1 year extension.
It's also a cheap option.
Yeah.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.